Folks, I have Peter Tompkins back with me today. In fact, before we got started, I mentioned to Pete that I was on his show twice, and he's been on my show twice. It'll be his third time. And the first show, Pete went back to July of 2023. So that was almost 3 years ago. So time flies.
Yeah,
And Pete is the content creator behind the YouTube channel PTPop, a very enjoyable channel. And Pete is also a musician, he's an artist, and he's a filmmaker. And today we're going to talk about his newest documentary, Disconnected: Voices from the Call Center. Pete, correct me if I'm wrong, two other films, Road to Forgiveness, which I
yep,
watched. That was a great documentary as well about your upbringing as a child in your family, and then also The Artist.
correct. Yep.
Yeah, I watched that also a while back. So those two were great. I also watched Disconnected. You sent me the link, and it was great. And what I mentioned to Pete, folks, before I got started with the show, is that, as many of you know, I worked in the corporate world for over 30 years. So I'm very familiar with call centers and the call center environment. I never worked in one, but in my capacity in my corporate job, I had interaction with the call centers from a financial perspective. So what Pete talks about in the film is real. So with that, Pete, I don't know how you wanted to start. Did you want to talk a little bit about how you got into the corporate world, the call centers, or did you want to go before that? How would you like to
Um,
kick things off?
well, I guess I'll start with a little bit about college, and when you go to college, you think that it's the key, the golden ticket to a great future. You're going to walk out of school and people are going to be handing you buckets of money just because you have a diploma from a state school. Because I went to a high university. When I got out of school, I couldn't find any jobs. This was 1988. And, I think we were kind of at what is that, the beginning of Reagan, beginning to the end of Reagan's term.
Toward the
The,
end.
the economy wasn't the greatest. And my friend and I, we couldn't find work, and he ended up getting a job in a call center with Progressive Insurance. And then I got a job with a small telecom company in a call center. And so it just kind of all started there. And initially, call center jobs weren't that bad. But it was just something I just took because there was nothing else that I could get at the time. So it just kind of started as just something that I stumbled into, and it didn't pay really good, but it was in a nice building, and I got to put on a suit and work in a glass building and drive to a kind of a posh part of Cleveland and sit in a cubicle and talk to people on the phone. And I initially thought it was cool because I got to wear those headsets like they wore in the Apollo Houston astronauts
Yes,
in the
yes.
control room with a little. I thought that was so cool, and I'm like 22 years old, and my initial job in the call centers wasn't bad. And there were no metrics yet. You could get up and go to the bathroom. You could do it. You could talk to your neighbors. You could have an hour lunch. All those things. So that's kind of where it started.
Okay, so you're a young guy, you're 23 years old, you're in a
Yeah,
nice corporate facility. They
yeah,
don't have all of the, like you said, the metrics, and we'll get into that in a little bit as we continue the discussion. So you started off, there's no AI, you can get up and go to the bathroom. You can pretty much manage your day yourself. And
exactly.
over time, as you and I both know, that managing of yourself at work, um, that disappears. And it actually, in my view, it kind of disappeared pretty quickly as the whole thing with the call centers became um, more competitive, but also initially call centers were, and you tell me if this is your experience, but this is my experience coming from my background, were expensive to run.
Oh yeah,
So companies were always looking for ways to cut costs, make it more efficient, more effective, more productive. We used to hear that word all the time, right?
yeah, oh yeah.
Productivity. So when did you start to see the shift from being able to go to work and be a human being to and managing yourself at work to when it started to be taken away from you and essentially employees started to be micromanaged.
Oh yeah, that happened. My initial company, a friend of mine worked alongside me. She left to go to a company called GTE Wireless. This is in 1994 at the beginning of the cellular boom. And she called me up at my desk and she said, "Come on over here. You're going to make like another $5,000 a year. It's a great company. Cellular is the next best thing." And I interviewed, got the job, and it was my first experience with metrics. It was about like a two. I went from like a 6-man call center to a 200-man call center, and it was this big room that took up half the building with just as far as the eye could see cubicles, and there was a beeping leaderboard with red letters on the wall that would beep anytime there were more than 10 calls holding, and the director would come running out of his office and tell everybody to get on the phones. Calls were holding, and you just couldn't leave your desk. You had to have permission to go to the bathroom. One time I got up to go to the bathroom and a supervisor saw me and she's like, "Where are you going?" And I said, "I'm going to the bathroom." She goes, "No, no, no, you can only go on your breaks."
Wow.
And at the time I was what, 30? How old was I? I was almost 30.
Okay.
And I was just totally overwhelmed. We got 2 weeks of training to learn cellular telephones. At the time, on maybe 3 or 4 computer systems. And I thought I knew them really well. I thought I really understood. But the minute I got on the floor, I realized I had no idea what I was doing. And
You
within
brought that
2 weeks,
up. I'm sorry. You brought that up in the documentary about the training and how deficient it was.
oh yeah, it's just think of it this way. Anybody who's watching this, yourself included, anything you learned when you were in the corporate world, could you learn all of that took you maybe a career, a lifetime to learn in 2 weeks? Get on the phones and talk to the general public about it proficiently and coherently and rapidly. And I'd say no, most people couldn't. Even if you work in a fast food place, they give you more training to learn how to cook a burger than they do in a call center. So in a call center, they give you 2 weeks of training to learn a whole boatload of systems. They want you to learn how to sell. You have to now these days you have to upsell and you have to learn customer service. Now the two different skills are completely different. Customer service is one thing, but selling is an entirely different task. And most people don't have the gift to sell. And I
Right.
think you have to have, it's like being a musician or something. You have to have an innate ability to really desire it and understand it and how to turn people around to get that sale. So they're bringing the average person in off the street to learn an entire catalog of products, how to sell, how to do customer service, and then they're throwing people on the phones. And most people don't last because there's no way, it's not humanly possible to learn all that and be good at it and proficient within 30 to 90 days.
What tools did they give you, Pete, to be able to do the job? And you have 2 weeks of training. Obviously, that's not a lot of training. So when a call came in, how were you able to address the customer's issues or concerns? I mean, what did they give you something to a reference to look at? How did that work?
Well, back then, this is the mid 90s. I don't think we had any reference material back then. There wasn't like an online database like in some of the more recent newer call centers have that kind of stuff. But back then, we may have had manuals. I think we actually had 3-ring
Binders?
binders. Yeah, we
Yeah,
had
yeah,
binders, and
yeah,
you could look up the different model phones. There was only 3 phones.
right.
There was a flip phone, Motorola Flip. There was a bag phone, and then there was a car phone that was permanently installed on the console in between the seats of cars. So I think that's all we had, and we would be rifling through the notebook trying to get information if we didn't understand what the customers were asking or things like that. So initially it was just a binder. That all, as the years went by, it was all online. It wasn't much better than the three-ring binder, especially later on with Verizon Wireless, where I worked in the 2009 to 2010. They had online support. I know what you call it. Somebody called in and asked about their StarTech phone, or their Motorola phone or whatever model. You had to try to find that model in the computer to try to find out how it worked because each phone is different. And it
Right.
was not much, not to me anyway. I could never find the customer's answers on the online sources.
So it was mostly technical support oriented,
It was billing and technical support,
billing and
people
technical. Okay.
calling in about their phone didn't work or they didn't understand why they had certain fees on their bill and things like that. It was mostly questions like that in the initial phase, my first corporate call center.
Okay. Okay. And I know we'll talk about how some of these customers treated the call center employees, which
Oh, yeah.
was brutal. I know that for a fact. So, so after Verizon, you said that was around 2010.
Verizon was 2009 to 2010, Verizon Wireless.
Okay. So where did you go from there? Or did you go? Did you get out?
Uh, I went back to school. I was studying graphic design and web design back then, and I got out, and then we moved back to Ohio a few years later, and I started working in banking here in call centers and banking, and it was the same thing. And the thing I got stuck in is when they advertise these jobs online, they make it sound like this is the step to a better career. Use the call center as a gateway to a better job down the road. You can get into marketing, you can get into HR. And I kept thinking, well, yeah, I mean, if I can get into this really nice bank in Ohio, it'll be a step into getting into, web design for the company, run their website or something like that. I was a grown man. I was still bamboozled. And so I went into banking. I've been in banking off and on over probably I've been in like three or four banking call centers
Okay.
in Cleveland and one in Arizona.
I remember it being sold even where I worked
Hmm.
as entry level and a foot in the door
Yes.
to bigger and better things in the company.
Yeah.
But the thing is, a lot of people never survived.
No, no.
They were carrying people out in body bags because of the just the rate and pace and the mental pressure of what the job entailed. And I know you talked about the measurements and the metrics. Um, did you want to talk about that a little bit so we can get into? I don't want to cut you off here on anything. So if there's something you
Oh,
need to
no.
talk about, um, I would really like the audience to understand what the environment was really like
Hmm.
and how it was mentally exhausting.
Oh, sure. Well, when you're in a call center, because the call centers are so expensive to run, the C-suite people or the men and women at the top of the corporation try to get you to have a customer on the phone for only a certain amount of time. And the traditional amount of time in every call center around the world is 7 minutes. And I came up with how they came up with that. I don't remember now, but the 7 minute talk time is the average amount of time you're allowed to handle a call. And they do that because it costs them money to have all the phone lines up, the lights on in the call center and the air conditioning and the building itself costs them money. So somehow they came up with this 7 minute talk time. So you get a customer who drops into your headset and they are screaming at you. These days, they're screaming at you almost immediately about something that they consider a horrendous thing that the company has done to them. So within 7 minutes, you've got to try to take control of the call, figure out what they're screaming about, handle that issue that the customer has. And in the process, especially in the modern day call centers, you have to sell to them. You have to upsell. So if they have like an iPhone, whatever the latest model is, you've got to upsell them to the next model iPhone while they're screaming at you because they don't like their current phone. And if you don't do that and your call gets recorded and listened to by the quality assurance people, you get written up because they'll say, well, I don't care if they're yelling at you. You're supposed to upsell. That's part of your metrics. So they have these metrics. I'm kind of jumping around, but
No, it's fine.
there's a series of metrics that you have to meet within a certain percentage. You have average handle time, you have hold time. You can't keep the customer on hold for more than like 30 seconds. If you go above those 30 seconds, you get in trouble. If you don't sell enough or try to upsell, you get in trouble. If you don't say certain words, if you have a script and you miss one word in the script, you get written up. If you don't empathize well enough with the customer or they don't hear empathy, if they hear you yawn, if they hear anything out of the ordinary in the call, you can get written up. So the metrics are so regimented that you're constantly paranoid. You're in a state of panic, constant panic and paranoia. I didn't mind, people calling you dirty, filthy names. And I didn't mind that because they're not standing in front of me. You can call me whatever you want over the phone. I don't care. So what bothered me was I really wanted to help these people and try to figure out what they wanted. But in the meantime, I'm thinking, oh my God, this call that I'm on the call with the customer for 10 minutes. You start to panic because you're above the 7 minutes. And then you've got to try to sell and they're already angry. And if you say, oh, would you like the latest model of iPhone? And they're like, no, I didn't call about that. They start screaming and yelling and it just escalates everything. And then if it escalates, and they hear the call, management hears the call, they write you up because you didn't control the call and they get mad at you because the customer got mad because you didn't present the sale the correct way.
Right.
It's this mind. I don't know if I can use this word fuckery.
Yeah.
And it's this mind fuckery that they put in very few people are skilled enough mentally. You have to be really mentally organized and almost sociopathic where you just don't care. And you have to just go, well, I'm sorry, how about this phone? And just kind of you have to do it with a smile too. If they can't hear the smile in your voice, you get written up.
Yeah. It's like they stuck you in a pressure cooker, and they
Yeah.
expect you to operate under all that pressure. And it is almost comical that the customer is calling because they have an issue, and many times they're agitated because they have this issue. They're angry, and then you're going to start talking to them about, hey, why don't you try this model?
Yeah.
Right? They're going to sit there and say, I don't care about that model. I want this
Oh
model to
yeah.
work. So, yeah, all these time constraints. I remember the metrics, and for me, it goes back a long time ago, at least over a decade. And I know it's gotten a whole lot worse since then. And back when I was in the corporate world, our help center was, or call center, we used to call it a help center, was contained within the company. In other words, they were our employees and they worked for the company. But over time, what was happening was they were moving away from that. They're moving to more contracted personnel. And then they started to farm out the work to companies that, quote, specialize in call center operations. So, so with that, my experience, what happened was many of the employees became transient. And so just when you've got somebody up to speed on working a call center, um, they reach a point where like I'm out of here.
Oh yeah.
And now you've got a new batch of people coming in and the whole process starts all over again. I mean, really, when you think about it, Peter, it's ineffective in a lot of
Oh, it's
ways.
well. What it comes down to, like when I was I noticed that the attrition rate. I worked for what was Bank One, is now Chase.
Yeah.
When I first moved to Arizona, and we had a training class of like 35 people, and after 2 weeks, we had 30 people, and after we all, I think the training class was about 3 weeks. After 3 weeks, we had maybe 20 people left. And then once I hit the floor, all the people, there was only like 3 or 4 people left from that entire training class working for the company still. And people
Okay.
would just walk out. Um, and it's really sad because, most of the people showed up with good intentions. They want to work. They want to be with that company and they want to do their best. But I think what it comes down to is the companies, this is just my hypothesis. I think the companies see the customer as a necessary evil. So they need somehow to pacify that customer. So they throw up this call center or a variety of call centers, and they just give the customers bare bones service just to shut them up. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
just it's just like it's there's no way you can give legitimate customer service if you've got 2 million customers and 500,000 of them are calling a month. There's no human possible way you can actually address
no,
sufficiently or efficiently those customers' concerns. So, and to get to what you're saying, a lot of these places to compensate for the amount of money they're spending in America, they're outsourcing everything to BPOs.
yeah,
They're offshoring them to India, the Philippines, and because those people in the Philippines are making like $2, $3 an hour, which in their country is a lot of money.
right.
Actually, many of the people that work in the Philippines, their jobs are considered more prestigious than being a nurse, and they're making more money than nurses, which I was just astounded when I found that. I've done so much research; it's hard for me to organize it all in my head, but it comes down to the corporations don't really care. It's a necessary evil to have the call center and these customers that are giving them all the money that are making them wealthy so they can go off on some exotic island and have fun. It's a pain to them to have service these customers, so they offshore everything to save a buck.
Yeah, we used to call them, again, I'm going back a long time ago, but we used to call them low cost countries, LCCs.
Oh wow.
And what would happen is, like, if you moved the part of your business over to India, as an example, and at one time it was considered an LCC, a low cost country, but then the employees started to have an awareness and awakening, and hey, we want more money. So when it got to that point, what would happen is then they would look, when I say they, I'm talking about the hierarchy within the corporation, they would then look to move the the work to another country where it was lower cost. So they continue to just move things around. Eventually, of course, what will happen is you run out of places to move things. And in my mind, that's where the advent of artificial intelligence comes into play now. And I don't know if you want to talk about that now, or if you want to talk about it later. It's up to you. But the one thing I wanted to ask you, Peter, was did you have different levels of support within the call center, level one, level two, or was it just one level? In other
Well,
words, if you couldn't resolve something or somebody couldn't
yeah,
resolve something on the desk, it got bounced to a level two support structure.
yeah, it depended on the call center, but most teams had a manager, and they would sit at a desk, and you all sat in a group of cubicles, and the manager was kind of like the at the center, and you could run over to their desk and say, "Hey, I've got this question I can't answer." And if she had time or wasn't busy, you could transfer the call to her. And if she couldn't handle it, she would, if it was an escalated call with an irate customer that wanted out of their contract or canceled their account or whatever happened to be, usually there's a couple different. There was a team lead was your first recourse, then the manager. Um, but once you transferred it to the team lead or the manager, you usually never heard from that customer again.
Yeah,
You just took the next call, but it was usually team lead, manager, call center director, and then some of these people would get so angry would get all the way to a CEO at times if they found a way to wiggle their way up to the top. But and then there was quality assurance people, and there was sometimes what they call floor walkers. For Verizon, they had people walking the floor because Verizon's call center was a 2,000-man call center, and it was massive. Just as far as the eye could see, just looked like little whack-a-moles, just little heads is out to the horizon.
yeah,
And
yeah,
there were supposed to be floor walkers. There were supposed to be all these people, but The catch is you have supervisors and team leads, but they all disappear. Nobody ever knows. And this is any call center. You have people in charge that somehow are always in meetings, and nobody knows why they're in a meeting, but they're in meetings all day long, especially when you need them the most. And I got so paranoid. I thought, isn't this weird? I've got a lady saying that a raccoon ate her phone, and she wants a new phone because her raccoon ate the phone. Really weird stories. You get these customers saying really freaking weird stuff, and you had no idea how to handle it. And you'd look up and you'd think, well, I wonder if all these supervisors are in a room calling each of us with weird calls just to trip us up, because the weirdest calls would come in when they'd all go into meetings. But to answer your question, there's different levels, but they were very rarely around. You would
Now,
very rarely find a supervisor.
I'm going to assume there was a metric that was in place that measured how many calls left your desk and had to go to a team lead or to a manager or to
Oh,
the next level.
I don't know if there was a metric, but you would get talked to. They
Yeah,
would say, hey, Pete, you should have been able to handle this one on your own. This isn't something that should have gotten escalated. You should know what you're doing by this time. They would talk to you like you were a little child and reprimand you. I got that a lot because there were sometimes I just, what do you do with a lady whose phone was just eaten by a raccoon? I mean, you get really weird calls. Like the weirdest thing about call center work is you get a really good idea of the intellectual or intellectual capacity of the country, of the United States. I mean, it's really scary when you hear people that don't know how to add and subtract, don't understand, you know, their bank account at all.
yeah,
You wonder how people even function. But yeah, I don't think it was a metric, but it was definitely, they would sit down with you and, take you aside. You get a tap on the shoulder and say, hey, that call you just sent over to me, let's go talk about it. And they'd say, well, you shouldn't have sent that to me. You should have been able to answer that on your own. But there's so many thousands of things you've got to know.
right.
You can't remember it all, but they expect you to, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it's a catch-22 also because
Yeah.
if you take the initiative and you're proactive and you make a decision and it's not what they consider to be the right decision, then you're going to be spoken to anyway,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
right?
Yeah.
So you're in this catch-22 situation. But I wanted to have you talk a little bit more about the mental fatigue and how it just wears people down because we're talking about the metrics and the environment and all that stuff, and I'm sure people are starting to get the idea of what this is all about.
hmm
But if you could just talk a little bit about how it impacts people's mental well-being.
Oh, it's horrible. It's really stressful. As I said, the attrition rate is at least 60%. So hypothetically, if you had 100 people in class, training class, you would lose 60 of them within the first anywhere from 30 days to 6 months. And there was, when I was at Verizon, there were people that were dropping on the floor, passing out, and the paramedics were at the call center at least once a month. And it got to a point where the last day I was there, I was walking out the back stairs and they were coming up with the stretcher because the lady had screamed. She let out this horrible scream and collapsed on the floor. And people, as I said, come there with good intentions. They want to work, they want a job. There's a lot of single moms in the call centers. Um, for some reason, there's a lot of pregnant ladies in call centers, so they need the job. They need to work, but the stress is so horrible. They just quit. They need the health insurance for their baby. Um, for me, I can't speak for other people, but for me, it got to a place where I couldn't handle, like, I got very paranoid in the call centers because you were never right.
Right.
And I started to second guess myself. I started to wonder, like I said, I wonder, are they all sitting in a room sending me these crazy calls? Are they making stuff up just to make it hard for, we'd all get these weird calls. So for me, it weighed heavy on my self-esteem, how I looked at myself. I would start to feel,
Did you have anxiety?
oh yeah, anxiety. I started going into counseling. And when I was in Arizona, I was seeing a counselor about it. And he agreed. as you see in my film and my documentary, Art Kraslovsky has worked with specifically with call center employees, and people start um, medicating, self-medicating. I didn't, but I had a friend that worked at Progressive Insurance, a different friend, and he would sit in his car and get high before he'd go in, or he'd sit on his brakes and get high.
Yeah.
And people just can't handle it, and they need the job. And there's a lot of people that medicate, they get suicidal, they get overwhelmed on the floor, they pass out. Um, it's a really it's a meat grinder of an atmosphere.
Yeah, like I said, it's a pressure cooker, and it there's a lot of mental abuse that takes place, and so a mental abuse will ultimately lead to physical problems as well. You know, if you're inundated with stress all the time,
Oh yeah,
that's going to manifest physically. And you said the
yeah,
lady that let out the scream and fell down, she probably had an anxiety or a panic attack. It's probably what happened.
yeah. I had migraines. I'd forgotten about that. I had really bad migraines at Verizon, and they magically went away when I quit. But yeah, they manifest in a lot of different ways, and people have to find a way to escape. Um, so it's a very stressful. It's not physically stressful; it's mentally stressful,
Yep.
and a lot of people just. And there's a lot of young people. There's not many people over like the age of 40, but most of the people in there are young people that are trying to start families, trying to buy houses, trying to do all the things that we all dream of doing. And they have the best of intentions. And it's of my opinion that they're being taken advantage of.
No,
And
yeah,
they're being set up to fail. So that makes
absolutely.
it stressful.
It's stressful, and like you mentioned, there's a high attrition rate. It's transient, and it's really a fallacy that you're going to go there and have a career. And
Absolutely.
it's sold that way. And so people are thinking, hey, I can get my foot in the door, like you mentioned before, and this company. It's a stepping stone to bigger and better
Hmm.
things. I can go buy a house, I can get a car, I can take care of my family, I have health insurance. But the thing is, the tenure there is going to be very short-lived unless, you're really somebody who's used to wearing a flak jacket and going to work every day. You know?
Well, and I've only known a couple people to make it out of the call center and get advanced out of there to bigger things. There's a woman I worked with that ended up working in marketing and she got transferred. When I was with Wells Fargo, she got promoted and transferred to their headquarters in San Francisco. But she's a rarity. Most people don't even stay more than 6 months. They can't handle it or they get fired because they can't make the metrics. So it's a very unforgiving environment, and it's a lot of false advertising. The way they sell the job to a
Hmm.
potential employer or employee, they make it sound like you just got it made, man. You can come in here. This is your foot in the door to Wells Fargo or Verizon Wireless or whoever the big company is. Not to pick on anyone specifically, but it's really disheartening when you see it's really almost impossible. And in order to get promoted, you have to meet all the metrics.
Right.
So if you have to be within 80% of all the different categories you have to meet, talk time and hold time and all that stuff, if you don't meet all those, you can't post out of that position. And you might just be a point away and they'll say, sorry, you can't apply for that position because you're not meeting the metrics. So very few people, even if you do state you can't meet the metrics, they might be meeting them enough just not get fired,
Right.
but they're hanging by a thread and they want to post out. They want to try for something they're more qualified for, but they always seem to rig the numbers. So you're just stop. Sorry, maybe next quarter you can post for that position. So you never really get a chance to post out
It's
or
interest
apply for another job internally.
it's interesting. You would think that the progression from a promotion perspective would be you're at the desk in the cubicle, maybe then to a team lead, from a team lead to a manager, and then from a manager, I guess maybe something else will open up in the company. Is that the track that you found most people had to follow in order to hypothetically get out of the call center?
Well, Not always. No, I knew a guy that got promoted to quality assurance.
Okay.
Quality assurance is the group of people that listens to the calls and
Hmm.
grades them and then sends them the grades to your supervisor. The woman who I worked with at Wells Fargo, she got promoted to marketing directly from the call center, and then she got somehow transferred to San Francisco in the headquarters. I don't know how she rigged that. I don't know what she, not nothing against her for being a woman, but it's kind of a huge leap to go from taking sales calls in a bank to working in the headquarters for Wells Fargo. But most people, it depended on what you wanted to do. Some people who wanted to get into management would post for the team lead position
Right.
or manager. A lot of people did it just because it paid a little bit more money, maybe $1 or $2 an hour. Wasn't a huge pay increase. There's a couple of people on TikTok who are lifers in the call center, and they've all said, "Yeah, I got all the way to a supervisor, and I wasn't making much more than when I was a call center rep." So the I don't think there's any direct pathway career path. You can
Okay.
pretty much do what you want if you can meet all the metrics.
I would think that the leap that that one lady made, that you mentioned, that could possibly be because she was connected somewhere. She knew somebody in the company that was able to help her and pull her out. I've seen that plenty of times.
Hmm.
Connections and networking is very, very important. It's who you know, right? As you know. Um, Peter, before we got started, I mentioned to you that you made a very interesting connection to the old sweatshops into the call centers. And I thought it was a very good connection because, as I said to you before we got started, the call center really is a sweatshop, but it's just more technologically advanced. In the sweatshops, it had to do more with physical endurance and the breakdown of people's physical abilities by being in these sweatshops for so long and working long hours. But today, it's not so much the physical aspect, which could be an outcome if your mental health is not good, but now it's more mental fatigue, mental abuse. So, can you explain what made you go back to the sweatshops? Because I thought it was a very good connection.
I, why did I keep going back?
No, you went back to it. In other words, you brought that into as part of the history in the documentary. We had sweatshops,
Oh,
and then now
yeah.
we have call centers. And I thought that that connection point, that timeline was very good.
Well, I made the connection because when I'm a really stubborn guy, and I had been working these call centers, constantly thinking, well, it's got to be. I would in two different states. I kept thinking, well, maybe it's going to be better at the next company. Maybe the next call center for the big company is going to be better. And one day I'm sitting there going, this is just crap. This is just like a sweatshop. And I would always sit there, this is just like a sweatshop. They're just taking advantage of people, trying to pay them bare bone minimum. They got a nice, got a nice clean environment, but you're mentally driven, crazy. And I came up with this while I was sitting there at one of these banks. The banks were really bad because you had to sell. And if you weren't making the sales goals, you were just constantly being put on performance improvement plans and things like that. So I came up with a connection to sweatshops from like the 1800s, early, or that have been the 18th century, no, 20th century, early 20th century, late 19th century, where the people worked in the
Right.
the
The
the, the
factories.
mills,
Yep.
and it's not a direct comparison, but it's pretty similar. Uh, and what I think comes down to is just corporate greed. They don't they really don't care about you and me at all.
Nope.
They just want to make some money and the cheapest way possible. And I understand capitalism. Like if I want to sell glasses, you know, I got to get them made as cheaply as possible so I can make a profit and, you know, have a lot of money in the bank. And they'll cut any corner to do that. So I think I thought it was a legitimate comparison.
There was.
Yeah.
It was a great analogy. And if we go back in time, when I first started in the corporate world, human resources was called personnel,
Yes. Yeah. I remember that. Yeah.
right? And then it
Yep.
went to human resources. And so when you think about the word resource, like your stapler is a resource, your keyboard and your computer is a resource.
Yes.
So when they switch from personnel to human resources, what they're really saying is we have human tools. You
Yes,
know?
exactly. Yeah. You just become another widget that
Yeah,
they can replace or
yeah,
plug and unplug and plug in and things like that.
yeah. And once you're obsolete or you're not performing up to the metrics, you're not producing, then they just go get another resource to replace you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'll tell you a little story. When I first started in the corporate world, in the company that I worked for, they had a creed, and it had to do with employees, and it was referred to as respect for the employee. So the employee was respected.
Yeah.
The employee wasn't a tool, they weren't a resource, they were a human being, and so they were to be treated with respect, and it was great. Down the line, 8 to 10 years later, uh, then they started talking about work-life balance. So before it was your personal life is very important to you, and your work should not impede upon your personal life. They are two distinct things in your life. And then it moved to, well, now we have work-life balance. You've got to balance your work and your life. So they got away from the respect part of it, and now it's kind of like they're massaging it. By the time I left, which was back in 2014, it was referred to as uh, work-life integration.
Oh no, I have not heard of that one.
Yes. So your life is your work and your work is your life. So now it's inseparable. Now,
Yes.
now it's integrated. So there's no work is no longer in a separate bucket. You're all in one bucket now. Your personal life and your work life, it's all in the
Yeah.
stew. So that was the evolution that I saw, having worked in the corporate world for over 30 years. And I look back at it, I can chuckle now. I remember when I was there, I was figuring out what this was all about. This was just, they were soft selling the change in how they view the employee is what they were doing. And most people didn't pick up on it, and until it was too late. And when I mean too late, there is a point when people look back, they're in their current situation, and they're like, this is not right. How I'm being
Hmm.
treated is not right. So we talk about the call centers. We can talk about how you know how employees have received pay cuts, how things like profit sharing has disappeared,
Sure.
benefits. Employees are paying more and more now for their benefits. Back in the day, a long time ago, and I know I'm talking about a long time ago, uh, companies picked up the benefits 100% for their
Oh
employees.
yeah.
So going
Oh
back a
yeah.
long time ago. And all of that is gone now. And so, like I said, they've relegated the employee to a resource, a tool, really a disposable tool. Um, I don't like saying things like that, but
No, no, it's true.
it's
Like,
true.
because my wife was working for a major financial institution. She'd been there 15 years, and this company's eyes are bigger than his stomach, and decided to acquire another company. And wouldn't you know it, they just screwed up the finances behind it and had to have layoffs. So they laid off like 15,000 people. My wife was one of them. And since she got laid off, I think about half her team was let go. She was a manager. And all these people that loved her are calling her on her personal phone saying, they made a big mistake because now other people are leaving because the new boss is horrible. They all liked you. And other people they're still laying people off 3 years later
Yeah.
because they screwed up. And so these companies, it's not just call centers. The employee in general is a necessary evil to get their product out there or their service that they're selling. And I've seen it from my wife. My wife is an amazing employee. She's not political, but she knows how to navigate the waters politically, and she's
Hmm.
very good at uh, working well with multiple types of people.
Right.
And they didn't value it. They just tossed her out the window with everybody else, and they're Even her boss now knows it was a huge mistake, but they didn't care because they bought this other company and they had to make cuts somewhere because they wanted to have an advantage online, which is a whole nother story. But I've seen it from multiple angles, and I'm very anti-corporate now, so it's very hard for me to you know think of ever working again. Fortunately, my wife works and I'm able to do this stuff
Yeah,
and try to make some money on the side. But it's a pretty evil setup, and it wasn't always that bad. There was a time when there were unions. The call centers were unionized, and as you'll see in my documentary, they would do things to keep the unions out, like start paying the employees more money. They would basically bribe the employees, say, "We'll pay you more money if you don't unionize."
right.
And or if a call center got word that there was a move to unionize, they shut the call center down and route the calls to another office that was open. So these corporations are I think they're pretty evil, most of the big ones.
Our company, the Communication Workers of America, CWA, was trying to get a foothold in our company for quite a while,
Yeah.
and they didn't succeed. And one of the tactics that was used by the company, um, if they sensed that a particular area or segment of the business was leaning toward a union, they would they would dismantle that particular location or the work that was being done at that facility, and they might farm it out overseas.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, they
Yeah,
did do it all the time.
and also what a lot of people should know, I know this is a little off track here, but companies will buy other companies for the sole purpose of getting rid of them as competition.
Yes. Yeah.
So when they give you the big, spiel about we're bringing this company on, there's not going to be any changes, and there's going to be a smooth assimilation and all this stuff. And then a couple of months down the line, they're cutting heads. There's headcount cuts. They're laying people off, letting them go. Um, a lot of times it's because they don't want that company to succeed,
Yeah.
or they take from it what they can benefit from, and then once that's taken place, they get what they need. Then that's that, and they just cut
Mm-hmm.
it off the block, and it's gone. Um, I remember one company that the company I work for bought. This is a long time ago, and the company that was purchased. I'm not going to say any names, folks,
Sure.
because okay,
Yeah.
was successful, and they were making inroads in the telephone area in that segment of the business. And within short order, that company, which was an aspiring young company, which made a great product, was decimated once we purchased them.
Oh yeah.
Gone, it was gone. So now, is that because they didn't want it around and they wanted the technology, or is it because it was just poor management? Well, I don't know. It could be either one.
And
Uh,
and one thing you'll find when these companies buy one another, I worked for Time Warner Cable in a call center. And before it was Time Warner, I don't remember who they were before, but they bought Adelphia, which was a telephone cable provider. So you had like Time Warner combined with Adelphia, combined with like two other cable companies. And when you do this, you have to integrate multiple computer systems, and not all of them are compatible. So they kind of rig these systems so they can talk to each other. And you
yes,
probably know more about computers maybe than I do, but some were mainframe, old-fashioned mainframe systems. Some were modern GUI interfaced systems, and there was no way they had to have multiple terminals at your desk. You had to have three screens. One was for the mainframe, one was for the GUI interfaced Microsoft system, and these companies they patch it together somehow, and it never works right. Maybe and I
no,
but
what you're
because
yeah.
they want to be competitive and they want to eat up all the competition, they don't care.
No, you're absolutely correct. The old systems were called legacy systems,
Yeah,
and they were bringing
yeah,
these new systems. and the new systems had to speak to the legacy systems. So
Yes.
then there was this patchwork of development that took place to connect the red wires to the blue wires. And what you're saying is absolutely true. And so we used to call it a big bowl of spaghetti.
Oh God.
And then at some point, what would happen is somebody would say, hey, we really have to consolidate all this stuff. We can't have all of these systems because when you have all these systems, you have now additional expense because you've got to support
Yes.
the different infrastructures, the software applications, all of that stuff. So then there's this undertaking to try to get it consolidated and then put a new system in that does the whole thing end to end.
Yes.
And and that almost never works. It
No,
almost
no.
never works.
And it's expensive too
And
to
it's
come up with
very
a whole new
expensive.
system. Yeah.
Yep, yep. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes in corporations that the corporations will never ever tell you about what goes on internally and a lot of the bureaucracy, wasted expense, the inefficiencies, all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And they will never let the cat out of the bag.
No.
But I know you know because you've been in the corporate world, and I know, and there's going to be plenty of people who are listening to this who've worked in the corporate world, or probably or maybe still working in the corporate world, know
Yeah.
exactly what we're talking about. So, but now, Pete, in the documentary, you had interviewed people too,
Mm-hmm.
and so I'm assuming it wasn't that difficult to have people step up and talk about uh, their experience in the call centers.
Well, actually, it was. It was really hard, and
Was
it's
it?
always
Oh,
hard. It's hard to get people to go on camera. This is probably my fifth project, my third complete documentary, and it's very hard to get people to talk on camera. A lot of people are all talk until the camera. You mentioned a camera, and they're like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this.
right.
So I contacted all kinds of people, but the people that I did get in the film were more than willing to talk. One was Debbie Goldman of Communication Workers of America,
Yep.
who had just written a book called Disconnected. Um, it's not the same Disconnected as my film. I can't remember the name of her book, but she's an awesome woman. I think she's from New Jersey and very knowledgeable about call centers. And she was very willing to go on the film because we have similar. She has a different message, but we have similar goals, trying to
Yeah.
educate people about how, I guess, how far we've fallen.
Yeah.
Because she has a union perspective from it. And then I got my friend Kevin. He and I worked in the call center together, and I got Art Kraslowski, who's a friend and a fraternity brother, but he had worked in counseling for 40 years, working with people, a lot of people in the call centers that he worked for. And he worked for some big companies like you did.
Yeah.
And he had some things that I couldn't put in the film that he told me about. But yeah, it's not easy. It's not an easy process getting people to be in the film. I wrote to people on TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, and said, "Hey, please, there's this one woman on TikTok who would be amazing in it." And but she never responded. I didn't even know she got the messages. It's
Yeah.
hard to find how to contact people. There's another person I was going to have in the film who was the opposite of my message, a very positive person about call centers. But by the time I got around to getting to him, I kind of was done. I didn't want to bring up a different point of view. I
Right.
want to keep it all the same, going in the same direction. He's very positive about being a supervisor, and he was a really great person, but I just didn't feel he fit in the direction it was going. So it took me a long time to get the people I got in there. And then
Okay.
you've got to coordinate schedules, and you got to figure out, what they're going to say. And uh, like Debbie was in New Jersey, I'm here in Ohio. I didn't have the money to fly to New Jersey, and we did, our interview over Zoom, which I figure was fine.
It
You
was.
know,
It worked fine.
oh, good, good.
Yeah. In fact, the whole film, I was going to ask you, where do you see AI taking this?
Wow. Yeah, and we had talked about corporate greed and AI. is another way. They're desperately trying to find a way to eliminate customer service reps in call centers. And they're thinking that they're definitely pushing to try to get AI to replace live bodies answering the phone. If they could figure out a way to get those bots to talk like they're human and nobody can figure out that they're not human,
Yeah,
they would do it in a heartbeat. Because one AI bot in a call center can handle 1,000 calls at a time, at once. So when you get a bot in the phone, that computer system is speaking to 999 other people at the same time, and it doesn't cost them anything. So I think they're trying. It's not working quite as smoothly as they hoped, but I think they're desperately trying to get this all moved to AI, just like the grocery stores are trying to do the self checkout, or McDonald's has now got all the iPads instead of cashiers.
yeah,
They're trying to find a way to sell their products and service their products with robots
right.
or AI, just so they can save a buck. I always think of that Christmas Vacation movie where Brian Doyle Murray gets kidnapped by Eddie, and they bring him into the house, and the wife finds out he cut bonuses, and his wife goes, of all the dirty ways to save a buck, or the cheap ways to save a buck, and that police officer goes, I'd beat you with a hose. And I
Yeah,
think that these companies, they just are desperate to cut corners. And I get hopped up on it because, with the political climate of our country today and the Epstein files, a lot of these predominantly men are not exactly nice people. And they're doing things that are hurting a lot of people, and they're making money hand over fist. So I think AI is another way they're going to look to try to save some money.
yeah, and
I
they,
get pretty nasty about it. If it's just, it drives me, it doesn't drive me crazy. It makes me so angry because, well, you know the climate of the country right now and where things are headed. It's crazy.
yeah, I was seeing a lot of stuff now that's coming out, unless you're in a coma. You, you should be waking up to how this world really works and the
Oh
power
yeah.
structure behind it, right? So, yeah. The other question I was going to ask you, well, I'll make a point first because it has to do with the AI question I asked you.
Okay.
The problem that employees are going to have with AI, in my view, is that I'm going to run a little story by you. So I have an old Tascam 2488 Neo, which I do my recording on my songs,
Multi-track.
multi-track, 24
Yeah.
track. The machine goes back to 2010, 2011. It's a great machine. It still works great. And so I had to replace the hard drive in it with I wanted to do a solid state drive, get rid of the old drive, the original drive. So in the old days, what we would have to do is, well, you can't call Tascam anymore because they're not going to talk to you. The machine's like 15 years old, so that's that,
Hmm. Yeah.
right? Or you'd have to go to the internet and you have to roll around in support forums and stuff like that to see if you can pick out the information you need. Well, I went into Grok and I typed in, "Hi Grok, I have a Tascam 2488 Neo. I want to replace the original hard drive because I'm concerned that it's going to fail. Um, what do you suggest is the best solid state drive to put in it?" First, I asked it if it would take a solid state drive, and it said, Absolutely." And so what it did, Pete, was it gave me all the instructions, everything I needed. It recommended a drive for me that worked perfectly. I put it in yesterday. And that was that. So the reason why I'm telling this story is because that's the type of question that would have went to a call center many years ago in order to see if you can get some help, even if it was even a technical uh, call center for technical support. Today, you don't have to do that anymore. You could just type in your question, or you could ask your question audibly, and the AI will uh, give you what you need.
Hmm.
It's great from the perspective of we don't have to scour the internet all over the place to get what we need or the information that we're looking for. But on the other hand, when you look at that, you think to yourself, there's going to be a lot of people out of work at some point. And I don't know, it could be 5 years from now as the technology gets better and better. Certainly 10 years from now, I think it's going to be a whole different ball of wax, Pete.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, what are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I think you're completely right because I do the same thing. Now the catch to Grok and ChatGPT is their information isn't always correct.
Yeah,
And I've found some things that I put that I know what I'm talking about, and I'm like, I'll correct them. I said, this isn't right. And they're like, oh, you're right.
right,
I didn't
right.
catch that the first time through, but
Yeah,
yeah, I think it's going to replace a lot of jobs, and I think a lot of people are going to be out of work. And there are millions of people around the world that work in call centers, and when they finally figure out a way to have it all replaced by AI, there'll be people that won't have any place to go other than to go work at Walmart or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah,
And so I think it's a definite eventuality. I don't know how soon it's going to happen, but you can bet your bottom dollar they're in some back room or some uh, um, laboratory somewhere trying to figure out how to speed it up. Because I'm sure they had this long before they released it. And I think the thing that I don't like about AI, especially now what we're seeing with the war we're in, is there's a lot of fake videos out there
yep,
that's misleading people about who's alive and who's dead and how many
yep,
people were killed and where we really are fighting and how many missiles are falling. And there's some really drawbacks to it too. But I think it's definitely going to eliminate. And I don't know how people are going to make money. And as I said in my film, AI is, it's a paradox. These companies want their cake and eat it too. But if they eliminate all the jobs, who's going to buy the products to
right.
put money in their pockets so they can go to some fancy island and have a party?
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't know what the answer is.
I think eventually they want to get to universal basic income,
Yeah.
right? So I think that that's definitely in the works. They talk about it a lot in the UK, as a matter of fact, you know.
Oh, they do.
Yep. And I was thinking in terms of, the work, the financial work that I was involved in my company, I was thinking, there were a lot of people that were working on strategy, planning from a financial perspective. And I took a step back and I thought to myself, I can see where AI can be implemented to take care of most of the foundational aspects of the planning process. Of course, you're going to need human input to make certain adjustments based upon things that you know, um, where you know that you have to make adjustments, but the foundational aspect of it, um, I can see where a lot of people won't be in the finance business in a cubicle doing that work anymore because the AI will be able to aggregate all of this information from various segments of the business and be able to put the planning together.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, so it's just one of those things, that it is inevitable. It's here and it's not going to stop. I'm sure there's people who are listening that don't want to hear that. Oh, Mike, you're accepting it. It's not a matter of acceptance. It's a matter of reality. I mean, they didn't come this far uh, to not implement it full blown. I'm sorry. It's just the way
Oh, yeah.
it's going to happen, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, like I said, I think they've had AI for a while
Yeah,
and they finally released it. It's kind of ironic. I think they released it right around COVID. Didn't it really come out full blast at the beginning of COVID?
that's when they
I
started
don't know if I can
introducing
say.
it. Yeah,
Um, but yeah, I think they've got a plan. Whoever they are, they talk about a shadow government or a new world order and all that
yeah,
stuff. But I think the universal income, I think, is what it's called out. I think it's what you called it.
yeah,
I think they're
yeah.
looking to send us all a check each month and we don't have to work. I don't know what we're going to do all day. Um, you know, well, they'll give us just enough to buy food and pay the utilities, I suppose. But I don't
Right.
know what else it's going to be.
And you'll own nothing and be happy. And
That's the way it seems.
and we're seeing that today. We're seeing that with everything is subscription based,
Oh, yeah.
right? a lot of these large investment companies are buying up the single family homes
Oh yeah.
and they're making them rentals. And the process of doing that has raised the cost of buying a house to astronomical levels for most people.
Hmm.
And so now I think the figure is that the average age for a first-time home buyer is 40.
Oh my God. Wow.
So this is how out of hand it has gotten. So, there's a lot of things that are taking place that I think a lot of people are not really focused on or paying attention to and just think, well, it's just the way it is. But there's a lot of planning, Peter, behind the scenes by this shadow group that is forcing these things to happen.
Hmm.
Because it's like the great Oz behind the curtain. They're pushing the buttons and they have the levers and and to the extent that people don't become aware or wake up to how the world really works, then unfortunately, they will implement their end state, which George Orwell told us in 1984. So,
Hmm.
but in any case, I don't, I went off on a tangent on you
Well,
there,
no,
but
no, I think you're right on track because that was one of the point of my film was I wanted to not only tell people about the horrors of a call center, but how now they're replacing. It's kind of a message about AI too,
yeah,
because I finished the film with like, hey, we were here with sweatshops. They replaced the sweatshops with machines. They replaced the people in the fields that were slaves with machines. Then they replaced, you know, the sweatshops by sending them all overseas, so they didn't have to be governed by regulations in the States. So people in Taiwan and Vietnam are now making our clothes. And now they're going to replace all of us with AI. So it's kind of an evolution of
yes.
corporate greed leading to who knows what. So that's this kind of, I wanted to, and my concern is I won't get I've got a distributor, but I'm trying to figure out how to get the reach and get it out to the masses because I'm not going to get on Netflix, but I'll hopefully, but my fingers crossed, I'll be on Amazon and Tubi and a few places like that.
Good, good. Yeah, I hope so. But it's very difficult when you're independent anything these days to
Hmm.
get that reach. It's very, very difficult. You're a musician, I'm a musician.
Oh yeah, yeah.
I don't even know, how do you make a living as a songwriter and a musician? You really can't,
I don't know
right?
because
Because
I
every
I'm on Gig Salad and I had a solo act up until COVID. All my gigs died at COVID, and since then people have said, "Hey, we want you to play at our bar for 3 hours," and I'm like, "Well, here's my fee. I charge $350 to $500 for 3 hours."
right,
Which if they're going to hire a band, it's going to cost them. It should cost them like 2 grand for
right.
four guys or four gals or whatever. Nobody will hire me now because
Yeah.
I'm charging too much. And so I tried to say 150, but it's not even worth me packing up the car
No.
with all of my junk and driving 20 minutes or an hour to a gig for anything under $350. But these places don't want to pay it anymore. And I don't know what happened. I can't get anybody to pay the rates I used to make before COVID. And if there was a
Well,
memo sent out saying musicians aren't worth it or what?
well, I was watching a documentary about a month and a half ago,
Hmm.
and it's a current documentary. I forgot the name of it, and they were saying, Pete, that bar bars, people are not going to bars anymore.
Oh, really?
So yeah, so what's happened is a lot of these places, um, they're half empty or you know almost all empty because people just
Oh,
aren't going anymore. And they said that another statistic said that the amount of alcohol has declined significantly as far as people drinking alcohol.
really?
Yes, so there's been a shift, and it's interesting. And the shift took place. It started with the whole COVID thing back in March of 2020. Since that, put the stake in the ground there going forward, bars are not doing the business that they used to, not anywhere near the business they used to, and the amount of alcohol that people are drinking is down significantly. This is based upon the
Wow.
documentary I watched. So that could be another reason is that they don't want to pay because how many people are actually going to be in the joint?
Yeah, they won't make their money back.
It won't make their money back.
Yeah.
So a lot of things have changed. A lot of things have changed.
Well, I mean, now they've got AI is right. The writer's strike in Hollywood was based off of they didn't want their jobs replaced with AI because you can go and have a script written in 2 seconds. So the writers would be out of work. Now you can take the likeness of Tom Cruise
Right.
and make a movie with the advanced versions of different AI packages. I'm sure you're going to have to pay Tom Cruise for that, but you don't have to have lighting. You don't have cameras. You don't have to have sound. It's all done at the push of a button. So even if you've noticed, like movies aren't anywhere near the same as what they used to be.
No.
There's not big blockbusters anymore. There's nothing that you're like, wow, I got to, take the kids to this tonight. Yeah. But the good old days where you go to a movie theater to see Star Wars or whatever, it's all gone.
It's over.
Yeah, it seems to be that way.
Well, Pete, they're not even going to have to bother with getting any kind of rights from a Tom Cruise or whoever, because what they're going to do is they're going to create their own actors and actresses with AI.
Oh, sure.
And, they're not tied to any existing actress or actor. They're AI
Mm-hmm.
creations. And to the public, they will be real. And I could just see in the future where people will talk about these AI created actors and actresses in these films
Yeah.
as if they're real people, and they'll have a
Oh, yeah.
following, and they'll put them on the covers of the magazines in the supermarket.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know,
They'll even have little romantic uh, trysts. They'll be cheating on their spouses,
yes,
their AI spouses or something. But it's
uh,
the same thing with music. They've got all that stuff you can create on, is it Suno?
yes,
And these songs are getting millions of listens. And they've
yes.
taken a lot of them off of YouTube because they consider them not legitimate. But I don't know if you watch Rick Beato or Beato.
Rick Beato, yeah,
Beato.
yeah.
He's discussed it. And um, I don't even know. I can understand if it's a good song, but how do you how do you copyright that? You're not allowed to copyright it, I don't think. So who owns the music and it's putting everybody out of work. I mean, I've even seen interviews with big stars. I can't remember if it was Robert Plant or I don't even know if he's still alive.
Yeah, he
But
is.
one of those big guys said, there's no way to make money anymore in music
No,
unless you're a big star like the big guys that are touring. But you have to get like 10 million plays to make any real serious money. I think it was like 10 million, he said.
streams.
Streams,
I think you get a
yeah.
lot more than that. I'll tell you, Pete. I'll tell you my own story. Since 2013, when I released my first album, TuneCore is my publisher. I have 8.9 million streams over the
Wow.
course of 12, let's say 12 and a half years. My my royalties were something like $6,500.
Over 12 years?
Yeah,
Oh my God.
8.9 million streams. So
Wow.
so there's no money to be made in streaming. There's none. It's concerts, it's
Mm-hmm.
merch,
Yeah.
and whatever else you they can conjure up to sell the brand. It's not music anymore because albums are gone. When I say albums, obviously vinyl, CDs,
Yeah.
passe, right? Everything now is streaming on demand. And again, it gets down to you'll own nothing and be happy. So you don't even have a physical media anymore with
Mm-mm.
music. You just go on to your Spotify or whatever, and you stream it.
Yeah.
So it's crazy. It really is. So if you're a musician, talented person, I know you have how many albums have you published, released?
I think I've done 5 CDs. I mean, it's probably 4 CDs and one EP.
Okay. Okay.
I had a 5-song EP I released in 2012.
And you're a very talented songwriter and a very talented musician. I've listened to your music and it's great. Um, but there's a lot of us like that, and
Mm-hmm.
we're never gonna you're never gonna make any money at it. The system, the cards are stacked against us. So
Well, especially now you've got AI bands. I mean, you can't compete with, I mean, that's perfection. Like I put I had
Yes.
this, I went into Suno and I put in a song. I said, make a song about how much I love to pick my nose.
Yeah.
And it made this big band number and it was like, it was brilliant. It was really funny. And that's all I said. Make a song about how much I love to pick my nose. It gave me a whole three verses and a chorus and bass, drums, guitar. And I'm like, I couldn't have done that. And how do you compete with, and the sound quality isn't as good as a real studio, but I don't know how we're going to compete with that.
No. And the thing is, when we talk about sound quality, most people don't give a second thought to sound
Mm-mm.
quality.
No.
Um, and the thing, your point is really spot on because I experimented with an AI app that I subscribe to called Moises. And I was just curious. So what I did was I popped in a demo, right?
Hmm.
And a 3-minute demo. And I asked it to, it's vocal and guitar. I asked it for arrangements, drums, bass. I mean, it popped this thing out. I'm listening to it. I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. It was good.
Well, it was good.
I'm not gonna lie. It was good. Now, were there a couple of little flaws there, a couple of things that I would not have done or something I would change? Yes.
Uh-huh.
But I'm talking overall. Overall, it was it was pretty darn good and
Yeah.
depressing at the same time,
Yeah.
you know?
Well,
So, yeah.
I've used it to give me ideas.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on a painting over here. I'm doing these new series of paintings in day glow, fluorescent paints. And I needed ideas for characters to put in this, and it gave me a whole bunch of ideas. And so I, took the character it gave me and I drew it on the canvas, but I wouldn't use the image it gave me and publish it as my own.
Right, right.
I don't know if it's the same thing. It's kind of different. I'm taking my rendition of that and putting it on the canvas. So in that way, I think you can use it as a tool to improve songs or art or writing.
Ideas.
Um, I use 30% of my film is AI. Um, much of it is AI. So
It was
um,
good too. I knew that because I had read up on it when you sent me the link and your use of the AI in the film was excellent. It fit perfectly and it flowed.
thank you very much. Thanks so much for watching it because I'm really happy with the results of it. I hope it opens some people's eyes.
Oh, I hope so too. And so, Peter, where can people see the film? Is it available yet to the public?
Not yet. It's with my distributor. I work with
Okay.
Film Hub, and they told me they're backlogged by about 2 months. So I
Okay.
gave it to them about 5 weeks ago. So they still haven't processed it yet. What happens? They have to process it, and they find any flaws. I've got to fix them. I've got to meet their metrics. And if I don't, actually, if I don't meet their metrics, if I get three strikes, they kick the movie out. So I don't know. I'm thinking if it goes well, I should have it out by April or May. Usually
Okay.
takes a while to for them to get through their quality control.
Now, when they put it out, when they release it, will it be on Amazon or are you going to also put it on YouTube? How is that going to work? What platforms will it be available on?
Well, it should be. I mean, they send it out. They work with multiple streaming platforms. They work with YouTube and Tubi and Amazon.
Hmm.
They'll send it to all those places, and those places have to view it and accept it or decline it.
Okay.
So right now, my a documentary, The Artist, is on Tubi. It's on YouTube. It's on Amazon. So it should be. I think it's good enough quality to meet all of those other platforms' requirements.
Yeah.
So it should be on Amazon, Tubi. Where else do I think it's on Apple. My film is on Apple TV as well, I think. So it should be on some of the bigger streaming platforms.
Okay. So when it's available, let me know and
Yeah.
I'll get the word out. I'll put it up on the blogs. That should help.
Yeah, that'd be
Um,
awesome. Thank you so
yeah,
much.
I'll do that for you. And I'll put all the links to all of your platforms in the description box below. I'll leave a link to Road to Forgiveness and The Artist because both of those are on YouTube.
Yes.
That's
Yeah.
where I watched them. So,
Yeah.
and then Disconnected Voices from the Call Center will be it's TBD, but hopefully within the next few weeks it should be
Yeah.
available.
I'm hoping. Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, Pete, it's been very enjoyable. It's good to talk about something other than the Beatles.
Yeah. It's so funny.
Yeah, Pete asked me if I had watched that film. Was it Man on the Run?
Yeah, I think that's what he's calling it. Yeah.
Yeah, Billy or Paul McCartney's
Yeah.
new documentary, whatever. And I have not watched it yet. I told Pete I'm so beatled out that I've had no interest in watching the film. I will at some point, but did you watch it?
No, I saw a gentleman on YouTube reviewed it,
Oh,
and
yeah, yeah,
I didn't know it was on Amazon Prime, and I pay for Amazon Prime, so I was thinking of sitting in here and maybe just watching it, trying to see if I could stomach it. Because I want to hear the real story of the Beatles, the women that they impregnated, and the horrible things they did as young men, because they just portrayed these guys as these teetotalers drinking rum and coke in a hotel room after a concert, and like, there's no way.
yeah, yeah,
There's no. I want to hear the real story, but you'll never hear that because they promote them as such good boys that.
yeah, yeah. You'd have
Um,
to go to my channel for the real story.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, and well, we maybe we can talk about this when we're off. But I was looking at videos of Rory storming the hurricanes with
Yeah,
Ringo,
yeah,
and I'd never seen these until last night. I got this idea to watch some of his videos where he's actually playing drums with the band before he's with the Beatles, and I was shocked. It didn't really sound. His drumming wasn't that great,
yeah,
and he didn't sound like he did when he's with the Beatles.
yeah.
If you've ever watched those videos, but we can talk about that another time.
Yeah, yeah, no, we should maybe do another show. We could talk about your findings because you've gotten into more and more into the whole Beatles story because I've watched your videos on it, and I mean I can be in host mode and you can come on as a guest and talk about what you found, and your thoughts because you like me, you were a huge Beatle freak.
Oh yeah, I was majorly obsessed.
Yeah,
I drove my family crazy with it. And this is years after they had broken up, so they weren't, none of the
yeah,
merchandise was around or their records were in the stores, but the Beatles were old news.
right,
But when I found them,
yeah,
um,
yeah. I caught them on the tail end, 1968, 67, 68, around there. But I was the same way. I was a total Beatle nut. My brother used to come to my house and I had all this Beatle memorabilia,
yeah,
pictures. He said, it's like a Beatle shrine. That's what he would say to me.
yeah. Did you
So,
see the interview with Klaus Voormann? I think it was with him. And he was saying like it was 1967 and he walks into John Lennon's flat and John is on the floor crying, saying
no,
how miserable he is and how much he hates his life. And I'm like, wow, this was from one of the people that was with the Beatles, from
yes,
pretty much day one.
back in Hamburg.
Yeah. And I'm like, wow, this is a guy that, when you don't know the real story, you see them as these funny, clever guys, but behind the scenes, they were, well, at least John was a very tortured person and he wasn't happy.
Yeah,
And I think that I want to do a video about that because I got to find that video again where Klaus, I think it's Klaus. Is Klaus still alive?
I think he is. Yes.
I think so. It's a good, it was just like a 2-minute video. And he's like, yeah, there he is. John Lennon on the floor crying because he's so unhappy. He says, Klaus, I'm miserable. I hate my life. And it's like he was in the middle of Beatlemania. And
Right. And he's
it was
miserable.
nothing like we all think it was.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Pete, with that, um, I said I wouldn't talk about the Beatles, but we kind
Yeah.
of we kind of did a little bit, which is fine. Again, folks, the documentary is Disconnected: Voices from the Call Center. It's excellent. I've watched it, and it should be available within the next, I guess, several weeks,
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe 4 to 6 weeks. And I will put a link down below for Pete's other documentaries, Road to Forgiveness and The Artist. They're both excellent as well. And Peter, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about the call center and the corporate world.
Awesome. Thanks so much for doing this, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Oh, anytime, anytime, really.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you so much, Peter.